Well, I guess it kind of transitions into another possible topic we were going to talk about, which is ADU and the development of ADUs. Have private property owners, have they slowed down in seeking out construction of ADUs? How's that going?
I don't know. I haven't seen any recent numbers, but I from what I hear, I know that there's a lot of people sort of just very actively pursuing ADU and out there even called junior ADU, additions to single family homes. It's been a target, of planners in the city and the county for a long time, where we still have a lot of parts of the kind of greater area where there's like these deep, long lot cuts from when land was cheaper in the early 20th century or something, so like plenty of room to kind of densify, small level densify in neighborhoods. And then an interesting thing about the ADU, too, that I think is kind of under discussed, is that the recent state law changes actually allow multifamily accessory dwelling units in existing multifamily buildings where, so for example, if you have like a parking podium building, let's say you have, like a 7 or 8 story mid-rise apartment building where you have a couple stories of parking there, you could basically come in now and request to change whole sections of parking into housing and increase the density of an existing building by 25%. Like and even if you're
accessory building.
I think it's 50. I thought it was 50%, Tanner.
I think it's 25. But
so
I mean,
for every 4 units, for every 4 existing units, you gain 1. And
okay. In units wise, the floor area wise, you're allowed to expand 50%.
See why he's our guru.
I think whenever you're applying it at a multi-scale level for existing, I don't think there is a cap, but I think whenever you're applying it on a single family home scale level, I think the 50% cap will apply. But yeah, and then just to take Tanner's thought a step further, I just I'm sure a lot of people got excited when they heard oh, like all of a sudden my multifamily properties now open to ADU incentives. But bear in mind, it has to be limited to parking area, basically existing non-floor area. So you can't go and take someone's existing bedroom and turn that into, it has to be something that's already not designated as floor area. If you have a extra storage room, if you have maybe like a boiler room that could be retrofitted and moved around, but it is essentially created to help these like smaller scale apartment unit products.
Is that regardless
what
of
about
whether
commercial area or common area in projects as well? Like if you want to take an existing rec room and convert it to residential.
Yeah, as long as
it's not required.
Yeah,
not livable.
Yeah.
So for example, with the parking, like Tanner was talking about, if that entitlement required 80 parking spaces and the development's providing 80 parking spaces, you can't remove some of those to add an ADU. But if you have some excess space, like you're saying, that can be used as a...
I actually didn't know that detail. I thought you could lose parking, but so thanks for that clarification. I literally read it as that you could convert existing parking, but
existing parking, but not required.
Not required. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But also you can
required parking or required parking from the approval.
From the approval. Yeah, I mean, you basically can't invalidate your entitlement with this conversion.
With the conversion. But also you're allowed, if you don't have the like floor area space, like extra room in your apartment complex, and you have like open area, you're still allowed to build up to 2 detached ADUs as well, as long as they meet the other provisions in terms of setbacks and separation from buildings.
Yeah, it's basically if you have the extra space.
In multifamily.
Yeah, if you have the extra space, it's not spoken for.
But David, to go back to your question about whether or not you think it's, I think whenever you meant ADU, you mean in the traditional sense, right? Like what they used to call the granny flats, right?
Detached versus tertiary.
Right? So I think that's only as good as the single family housing market, right? Of course, I think there was some uncertainty in the market. I think June is probably the worst month for home sales, right? So, but thankfully, I think July and August and September trends have picked back up. So I think so long as you start to see the single family sales be promising, then I think you'll continue to see the ADU opportunities, because keep in mind, ADU was built to kind of increase home ownership, right? I mean, folks can't afford a 6 or 7 figure mortgage these days, right? So they need something to kind of debt service their monthly mortgage. People are willing to go suburban and you know, give up their studio space for some yard space, and a lot of homes these days come with at least a 1 single or 2 car detached garage. And so it's really exciting to see what other changes they'll come up with next year if this year it's now applied to multifamily. But yeah, the parking restrictions have become less intense, the height restriction density. So hopefully more good things to come.
John, can we get
When
the
they
real estate?
When you're talking about single family, I mean, you know, essentially, are you, just clarify, you're talking about having a single family building where you could start with you know, 1 single family and then have an ADU, right? And then take it a step further and have a junior ADU, right?
Here's John.
So I guess we're at that hour. So I mean, so you could end up with 3 units on a single family property. Is that
yeah,
right?
So the rule of thumb is, you know, everyone, you know, R1 zone, everyone's entitled to a single family home, right? The rule is you're also entitled to an accessory dwelling unit. If it's a detached structure, you can accomplish 1,200 square feet. 1,200 square feet, you can easily squeeze in a 2-bedroom, perhaps even a 3-bedroom, right? It's pretty decent size. If you wanted to convert existing, your part of your existing single family home, for example, you want to partition it off, then you're capped at the 50%. So if you have an existing 1,500 square foot home, you can't make your attached ADU larger than 750. But there are also benefits to this. For example, if you're the outlier, if you have a larger home, let's say, you know, 4,000 square feet, and if you want to do ADU attached, that's a 2,000 square foot ADU. So there are kind of these interesting incentives and interpretations of the code. But yeah, so to take it a step further, yeah, you do get the single family, you do get the ADU, and if you are the primary resident of the home, meaning if you do reside in the home on an everyday basis, you're entitled to a 3rd unit, a junior ADU, and that grants you another 500 square feet, which is easily another studio or you know, 1 bedroom. So if you're the savvy homeowner, you're officially the owner of a triplex, depending on how you want to look at it.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's huge for addressing the housing crisis, right? I mean, you're essentially increasing density in the suburbs as well as near transit. So all these things are very beneficial for the creation of housing.
I think I wanted to go back to the question David had about the sort of co-living or kind of micro units in sort of the age of COVID, where like we have a couple clients who that's their deal is sort of these micro units that are very, you know, kind of like amenitized buildings where you have all these sort of shared spaces, and then, you know, a smaller sort of space that you're renting on your own. The idea being it's quote like more naturally affordable because, you know, you're literally renting a smaller space, and their model is everybody has their own, you know, basically complete unit. Sorry if you're hearing squeaks behind me. My dog is playing with toys. Yeah. And but like, so we haven't seen like full steam ahead kind of on these type of housing models, and I think like as land costs continue to kind of increase, it's more and more needed, and a big kind of policy push, like especially in downtown, from organizations like the Central City Association, you know, to try to get more dense housing downtown. But the one thing I wanted to comment on that I thought was sort of funny during the height of the lockdowns was all of these people in fancy apartment buildings in downtown and other areas who are basically paying for all of these amenities, you know, like the pool areas, the gyms, there might be screening rooms, you know, different stuff that you couldn't access during lockdown. And I know that there was a sort of like growing revolt in some of these like, you know, apartment buildings downtown, like, let me into that pool I'm paying for. So,
Tucker, can you comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, I could still go in my pool, but the gym
sounds like an HOA issue.
Yeah.
Sounds like an HOA issue.
It's the same for me. Open, but not the gyms.
The pool at USC
It's
is open.
interesting though, you know, I mean, in terms of like what we've seen, you know, on the interest side, from our clients. I don't know if I think a lot of people see this as a temporary problem, right? The pandemic, and this isn't something that's going to be around forever. And there's still there is still an interest in high density multifamily housing, a big interest in providing, as Tanner mentioned, micro housing, right? But also, I thought the co-living concept was going to take a hit, and I think it did initially. And just so people are aware, like co-living is a term that is used, I think, pretty broadly, but it's essentially having large units and putting you can rent bedrooms essentially out of the unit, and in one unit you have a shared space, shared living space. But
Yeah,
even
my
that
bedroom's sharing
concept,
one
I mean,
kitchen.
it's still something that I think is desired, for a lot of reasons. And the co-living, for example, it's a win-win as I see it, amongst the property owner, the developer, and the tenants, because tenants can come in now to these units at a lower level price point, right, and still get all these great amenities, but gain access and that naturally occurring affordability level. And then the property owner also wins because they get to rent their units out when they're charging by bedroom at market rate pricing. Yeah, that's something that it's interesting. I haven't really seen a big change, I think, from at least the interest of people that are looking and prospecting at properties.
Yeah.
We get John's input on that, if you've seen it from your end, like from a real estate brokerage side, any like shifting demand for the current situation?
On ADUs, absolutely. I think ultimately a lot of agents have kind of not been fully aware of the updates, right, that have been going on the prior years. I think what sucks is that what you guys are discussing now is finally an opportunity to actually get a lot of ADUs built, financed. There's a lot of vendors out there that are building them from soup to nuts. I think Tucker has reached out or researched himself on a couple of these companies that, for Brick+Work, what we want to do is kind of provide that kind of reporting as far as the ADU, but we're partnering up with these architects to essentially, I think we discovered today, forget the massing. There's no massing needed for ADUs. We need a site plan. And so one of our partners, ANX, who, funny enough, I was just a little busy right now because I actually am hosting the YouTube Live that's super glitchy. And so two people have stayed on in the glitchiness. I'm like, oh my God. So Sharon Cars says, hi, Alex. And next time we host one of these, she's like, oh, I have hardwired Ethernet, so I can host it for you guys. So she offered that right now. And then Daryl Newbert was like, oh man, I was, for some, he lives in Vegas. He's the residential architect that we're partnering up with the site plans for the ADUs. And he was like, funny enough, someone just sent me a new bottle of tequila, so I had it open, and then all of a sudden, all I see is that glitchy, like frozen faces. So, but he's still having a drink, so I was just chatting them up on the background. So yeah,
learning experience.
So, but on the real estate end, yeah, absolutely. I think the connect, and what I love about what we're gonna do, and I hope we could do this more often, guys, is that so what you guys are involved in with projects, entitlements, city, and all that good stuff, there's a direct correlation to agents, but the language barrier is there, if that makes sense. So if you guys are talking entitlement speak and, A, B, this and that, and blah, 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 it just goes whizzing past agents and brokers' heads. And so I guess
they're talking about net leasable.
We're talking about commission only. That's all I hear about. How big and fat is that commission? So, but yeah, I mean, I think it's cool that we're going to be kind of that in between, right? So that we could kind of, basically put everything you guys are talking about, the updates that we're providing here, into bite-sized pieces so that they can go, well, how does this affect my bottom line? Can I close more deals? Can I, network with new developers and clients? So this is all great. This is all gravy.